A 999 call came in late at night. The report sounded like it was about a possible break-in. Police were sent to Soulbury Road in Linslade near Leighton Buzzard. At first, officers were responding to what appeared to be a possible burglary situation, but when the emergency services arrived, the entire nature of that call changed. Because on that street, they found a 17-year-old boy unresponsive. First aid was given. Emergency crews tried to save him. But shortly afterwards, the teenager was pronounced dead. And almost immediately, what had begun as a call about suspicious activity became something far more serious. A murder investigation was launched. One man was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder. 3 other men were also arrested in connection with what happened. But then investigators revealed something that completely changed the way the original emergency call was being understood. Bedfordshire Police said the enquiries had found no evidence whatsoever that the 17-year-old boy was carrying out or attempting to carry out a burglary. And that statement created the question now hanging over this entire case. If the teenager was not breaking into somewhere, why had police originally been called about a possible break-in? And what exactly happened before officers reached Soulbury Road? The incident happened late on Thursday evening. Police said they received the call at around 25 minutes past 10. By the time emergency services arrived, the teenager was already unresponsive. His family was informed, and detectives from the Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit began working to reconstruct what had happened. For investigators, the minutes before police arrived became incredibly important. Who was on Soulbury Road? What was happening there? What did witnesses see? And what was captured by cameras in the surrounding area? Detectives began reviewing closed-circuit television footage. They started speaking with people who could potentially help establish the sequence of events. Police also appealed directly to residents who may have doorbell cameras or other recordings from that part of Linslade. Because in a case like this, even a short piece of footage can help investigators build a timeline. A person entering the street. A vehicle leaving. A movement outside a house. Something recorded only seconds before the emergency call. Any of those details could help detectives understand what happened. And right now, there are still major parts of that timeline that have not been publicly explained. The confirmed sequence begins with the emergency call. Someone reported a possible break-in. Police responded. A 17-year-old boy was found unresponsive. He was pronounced dead. 4 men were arrested. And then police publicly said they had found no evidence that the teenager had been carrying out or attempting a burglary. That last detail changes everything. Because without a police statement, the public could easily have assumed that the teenager had been involved in the break-in described during the emergency call. Police have now specifically warned against that assumption. They have said the evidence they have examined does not support it. And that makes the original call one of the most important parts of the investigation. What did the person who called police believe they were saying? What actually happened before that call? Was the situation misunderstood? Were there events taking place that police have not yet made public? Those questions remain unanswered. And because this is an active investigation, it is important not to fill those gaps with speculation. There is also another significant development. The 4 men arrested during the investigation have now been released on bail while inquiries continue. That does not mean the investigation has ended. It does not mean investigators have reached a final conclusion. And it does not establish guilt or innocence. An arrest is not a conviction. No court has determined responsibility for the teenager's death. and every person involved must be treated according to the presumption of innocence unless and until a court decides otherwise. What police are doing now is continuing to gather evidence. That means reviewing footage, building a timeline, speaking with witnesses, comparing accounts, and trying to establish exactly what took place on Soulbury Road before emergency services arrived. The teenager has not been publicly identified in the police statement we are relying on. So there is no need to speculate about his identity, his background, or why he was on that street. The facts already confirmed by police are powerful enough. A 17-year-old boy was alive earlier that evening. Later that night, emergency services were trying to save him. A call had been made reporting a possible break-in. 4 men would be arrested. A murder investigation would begin, and detectives would later make clear that they had found no evidence whatsoever that the teenager was attempting that burglary. That is where the mystery begins. Because now investigators have to separate what was believed to be happening from what the evidence actually shows. And those are not always the same thing. The first report brought officers to the street. But the evidence collected afterwards is what will determine the true sequence of events. This is why investigators are asking people in the area to think carefully about that night. Maybe someone heard shouting. Maybe someone noticed unusual movement. Maybe a doorbell camera captured part of the street. Maybe a vehicle appeared in footage at an important moment. Police are trying to recover anything that can help fill the gaps. And those gaps matter because the crucial period happened before officers arrive. By the time police reached Soulbury Road, the teenager was already unresponsive. So the investigation is really about everything that happened before that moment, the movements, the interactions, the emergency call, the people present, and the events that led to a 17-year-old boy losing his life. There is also an emotional reality behind all of these police statements and investigative details. A family received the news that their 17-year-old son would not be coming home. And while detectives work through footage, interviews, and evidence, that family is waiting for answers about what happened during those final minutes. That is why accuracy matters so much in a case like this. It would be easy to look at the original report of a possible break-in and create a story around it. But investigators themselves have already told the public not to make that connection. They have found no evidence that this teenager was carrying out or attempting a burglary. So until police release more information, the responsible question is not whether he was involved in that break-in. The question is why the emergency call described one in the first place. And what actually happened on Soulbury Road that night? What will the closed-circuit television footage reveal? What will witnesses tell detectives? What happened in the minutes before police arrived? And will investigators eventually be able to explain the difference between the original report and the evidence they have found? Those answers have not yet been made public. For now, Bedfordshire Police are continuing their investigation. They are asking anyone who saw something, heard something, or recorded footage in the area to come forward. And until more evidence is released, this case remains centered on one disturbing contradiction. Police were called because of a possible break-in. They arrived and found a 17-year-old boy dying. 4 men were arrested. And then investigators said there was no evidence that the teenager had been committing that burglary. So what really happened before that 999 call? That is the question detectives are still trying to answer. And somewhere in the footage, witness accounts and movements from that night may be the piece of evidence that finally explains why a call about a possible break-in ended with a 17-year-old boy dead on a residential street.